So my name is Sarah Carlson. I am a vascular surgeon at Boston VA Medical Center and assistant professor of surgery at Boston University. So I'm here at work, finishing up a busy day in clinic where I've been seeing patients all day. And yeah, and I live in Boston downtown. So I got to go home and practice my piano after work. And my lesson coming up tomorrow.
That's amazing. So tell us a little bit about what your average day is like at work and the challenges that you might come across.
Sure. Yeah. So, vascular surgery is a pretty technical field. So, for example, this week I did a couple of carotid endarterectomy surgeries. So I like to think of myself as kind of like the plumber of the body, right? So if the artery has blockage, we fix the blockage. If the artery is leaking and bleeding, then we patch the leak. You can see behind me, this is a model of an aorta. My husband calls it a candy cane, but this is an aortic stent we put inside for an aneurysm like this. So I did one of these this week. And then, the rest of my time is spent taking care of patients in the hospital who have vascular disease and seeing patients in the office. So it's a busy lifestyle. It's a lot of hands-on and a lot of interaction with patients, which I love.
Yeah, this is amazing. You're also professing too on top of that.
Yeah. So, along with the with doing comes teaching. So I have a faculty appointment through Boston University, which means I'm, responsible for helping train their surgical trainees. So we have residents and fellows who are like the senior most level trainees who work with me and my partners every day in the operating room and on the just. So it's, they're doctors, but we're training them to be vascular surgeons. So that part of the job is really fulfilling. I love it.
Wow. And actually, it's probably rare for there to be someone like yourself who has the qualities and skill sets of a great professor plus a great trainer, if you will, plus that of a vascular surgeon, right? Those are very, very different, I think, careers or paths, and you have two of them happening.
Yes and no. I mean, I think, when you train a lot to become a surgeon, it's school, training. And then if you take the path of, a sort of an academic career, then you work in one of these teaching hospitals like I do. So that it goes with the territory. It's not particularly unique, but folks who go into private practice, for example, they don't necessarily have trainees, but anytime you have a surgical position that's associated with a university, then it comes with the territory of, teaching and training. And some people take to it more than others. I love it. I really love having trainees and teaching, but it's a great part of the job.
Yeah, it's definitely, but I imagine, not everybody is cut for that, right? So that's such a cool balance or a cool mix of your professional aspects that you're having your day to day.
Yeah.
Tell us, what are some of the biggest challenges? I asked you that, but I know you touched on kind of what your day to day looks like. When you're having difficulties, if you're going to have difficulties, what are some of the big challenges for you in your career?
Ooh, I think there are, well, that's a broad question. I think that the day-to-day challenges are, sort of the same things that other people in other professions deal with, right? Time management, trying not to, bite off more than you can chew. And you want, all of us who are in kind of demanding jobs, like yourself and like everybody, wants to be really perfect at everything. And so you have to kind of resist the instinct to take on more than you can handle, I guess, from time to time. On the other hand, I have a job where I have a commitment to patients and I take call. And so I have to make sure that I am, at least part of my brain is always available, especially when I'm on call for my patients. So I think striking that balance day to day is difficult. And then, in the longer term, it's, in your career also, you just want to make sure that you are, setting yourself up so that you are fulfilled in your career, but you're not burning yourself out.
Yes. Yeah. That work-life balance, quote unquote, that's just been, I feel like it's taboo now to say work-life balance because what is that for a lot of us, right? But
Right.
I feel you do an excellent job of that. I want to kind of jump over to how you have used music as a medium for your holistic health as a very busy surgeon, as also, someone who's also training up and coming surgeons. So how are you using music as a medium for your holistic health?
It's interesting. I never really think about it as holistic health, but you're totally right. I guess that is what it is. It's such a joy to be able um, to come home from work and decompress in a way that's not, everybody can decompress by like turning on the television and turning off your brain. And I do that sometimes. There's nothing wrong with that. But this is different. It's how do I describe it? It's almost spiritual in that, or meditative,
Mm.
because when I'm learning the piano, I'm a beginner. It requires concentration, but it doesn't require the kind of concentration that fatigues my brain like more work would. So it's like, it's meditative, it's concentration, but it's also a total release from work and work related thought. So for me, I mean, I get just it's almost like a brain buzz when I'm playing scales, which sounds really rudimentary, but I actually really like playing scales because it's two-handed activity and it's a little bit of muscle memory. So you can shut off sometimes part of the brain, but it's just, it works and it flows and it really, it just gives me joy in a certain way that I don't get in any other arena.
Yeah, and I'm sure songs too. Like I've seen you rock some happy hours.
I like pop songs, right? So my teacher Daniel, my primary teacher at MP, Daniel, is this brilliant classically trained pianist. But what I love about him is he is also he's super open-minded and he loves all kinds of music. So he loves jazz and pop and whatever. And he might roll his eyes a little bit at some of my really poppy stuff, but he's all in. He'll he'll teach me whatever I want to learn. So I like the poppy stuff. That's what I get joy out of.
I know he secretly does too, and especially
Right.
when you guys do duets. Yeah, my favorite was the last happy hour when you guys performed the Creeper set with all the.
Yeah, Daniel and I have a mutual interest in like serial killers and murderers, which sounds really horrible, but so we were coming up with a theme for Halloween, and we decided to do 3 songs like that were about creepy stalkery people. You're like, maybe people will get it when we string them together, and maybe they won't, but we'll like it. So we had a blast.
And it was Creep, right? I'm a creep. And
It
then
was
what was it?
Creep. It was that Blondie song One Way or Another, which is like, I'm gonna find you, I'm gonna get you. And then what was the third one? I'm blanking on it now. I have to think of it. But it was The Police, Every Breath You Take. I'll be
Oh,
watching.
that is, yeah, such a creepy song at heart. I love that. Oh man. Well, a little detour there, but I think the listeners will get a good chuckle out of that. So yes, okay. So yes, like music has been this vehicle of holistic health. And I think it's so spot on when you said I didn't think about it that way, because many of us don't actually. And I don't think I even thought about music as holistic health until I started this business. And maybe a few years in, as I got clear on the value it was really providing the members that we do serve. So my next question for you is in kind of digging into that, and outside of kind of that focused meditative aspect of it, which brings so much value. What other skills do you feel music may develop in you as a professional, directly or indirectly? So an example might be, by way of performing in music, maybe you felt or become more confident in your improvisational skills in the professional setting. Or I've heard some really fascinating answers to this, and so I'm just interested to see if you have found that outside of just being a wonderful vehicle for for decompressing and for meditation, if music actually, by participating in the learning of it, it's influenced your abilities or your other aspects of other parts of life.
Yeah, that's a good question too. One thing that immediately comes to mind is that being a student and learning music learning how to play the piano anyway, totally from scratch. I mean, I've never touched a piano before a couple of years ago when I started. makes me remember what it was like when I started down the pathway of, learning to be a surgeon. And so it is a little bit interesting when, it reminds me that how learners learn now that I am in a teaching position in my field. So, I'm now the kind of the senior surgeon training these medical students and residents who are coming in. And then I go home and I'm the beginner trainee learning. So I think it's really helpful to reflect on, what it feels like to be totally insecure in a skill, not know anything about it, and be sitting next to a person who's very accomplished and knows exactly what they're doing, and stuff that's very intuitive maybe for them is not at all intuitive for me. So I think it makes me a better teacher to be a student.
Yeah, and a better manager. I mean, we can transfer that to so many other industries as well. And just to get a little more even practical or specific with that, what, based on now this learning or this understanding, what are some things you've maybe adjusted in the way that you've trained others because of it?
Good question. I think, hopefully it's made me a little bit more patient because I'm sympathetic. Because I'm sympathetic, but also, it's interesting. I think about surgery and learning a musical instrument similarly in the way it's a lot. We use the term in surgery, and I don't know if this is a musical term or not, of like economy of motion. So you shouldn't be doing, you shouldn't have movements that are like wasteful of your energy. If you're going to tie a knot, you wouldn't reach your arm way up and over like this. Or if you're throwing a stitch, you want the curvature of your hand to be natural and not some awkward angle. And I think it's very similar playing the piano, and I try to learn the piano that way. So I think for me, it has really made me pay attention even more so to my students and trainees' body mechanics, and not developing postures and things that can be painful or cause you problems later, right? Like, when I talked to Daniel about, I had like a pinky finger injury, and he was like, "Ooh, that's really a big deal." and I use my hands every day at work, and I didn't think too much about it, but it's totally true that if you're leaning over and playing the piano like this, you don't want to be operating like this either. You want to protect your posture and your body from injuries related to your work and your recreation.
That's amazing. So just more awareness of one's body mechanics and how we can use it most efficiently or inefficiently, use it for positive ways or for ways that have unintended consequences, right? Yeah, right. That's really, really interesting. And just, I think, I remember when I started dance lessons, I was like doing salsa dancing with my boyfriend, and it was really the first art that I engaged in where I felt like totally uncomfortable. I was like a complete beginner. And I think we as adults, we tend to lean into these aspects of ourselves that we know we're good at.
Yeah.
And, when we're kids, we're thrown into all like extracurriculars that we don't necessarily show affinity for or, a natural ability for. And we just do it for the sake of play, for the sake of growth, right? But as we become adults, we get so targeted and everything becomes so goal oriented. And if we're not good at it, we usually dismiss it within like the first, a couple tries of it. So as I was doing salsa dancing with him, I was shocked because I was like, oh my God, I'm a beginner. And I was counting and I just felt like the whole thing was so awkward and I looked awkward. And yet as I gave it time and as I was humbled in that learning process, I recognized, oh my God, if you just put consistent effort there and if you continue trying and you make it through that stage of total awkwardness and discomfort into the stage of, all right, I can do this. It starts to become more a part of you. And that's the point where you start to really reap the benefits and you start to see how so much of it can transfer to so many other things that you're doing. Right. So I think it's absolutely so important to put ourselves in these situations where we are in a growth mindset, where we are embracing being a beginner and, humbling ourselves in the journey of mastery.
Right. Yeah. It calls to mind the one of the retired doctors at the University of Michigan, where I went to medical school. He's like, Dr. Bartlett. He's a genius, and he's the inventor of something called extracorporeal membrane oxygenation. He's like, he's credited with saving millions and millions. It's called ECMO, and anybody in the medical field would know it's sort of like a heart-lung bypass for patients. He's credited with saving the lives of like millions of people worldwide. He's still alive, and he played the string bass in the orchestra at the University of Michigan, the like doctor's orchestra. And I loved being, I knew him from that, in that regard. And he's like super famous, and I guess don't ever tell him I said this, but he's like a just okay string bass player, right? And it would be great to watch the conductor say like, oh, Dr. Bartlett, can you like play that note a little higher? And I was like, oh, this is amazing. It's so good to see, he's not perfect at everything, and yet he loves it. He gets joy from it. It enriches his life, and he can be this ultra powerful doctor and also, just a hobbyist string bass player. And it's beautiful, right? It's just a beautiful thing.
I love it. Hopefully he's not watching.
He's a hero already. So he doesn't have to be perfect at everything in every regard, and a wonderful guy.
None of us do, right? This is amazing. So to wrap, I have just one final question for you. And that's, I always like to ask those of you out there like yourself, kicking butt, taking names in your professional, personal, and musical life, what would you tell someone who says, I don't have a musical bone in my body?
Yeah, it's funny how adults say this, and going back to what you said earlier, it's like, when do we learn this? When do we learn to be so self-critical of art, right? If you give a 3-year-old an easel and some paints and say, make something beautiful, they'll do it without hesitation. And it is beautiful. And then you give an adult a canvas and say, make something, the adult will go, well, I don't know how to do art. When did we lose that? At what point did we forget? It's that heavy yoke of self-criticism is just, it's sad, but it's an instinct that I have. It's not like I've gotten away from that, but I feel the same way. But I think it's important to make a conscious decision to just let that go and just enjoy art for the sake of art. Everybody has the potential to do music in some way, and the benefits that you reap, I think, are just, absolutely monumental, and you just can't even describe how wonderful it is to be able to do something musical. And you do not have to win a Grammy Award, to be a musician and feel good about it. So yeah, I think everybody's got a musical bone. Everybody's got some time to practice. Everybody's got an opportunity, and what better time than now to seize that opportunity. And you only live once.
YOLO. Yes, heard right from Dr. Carlson. Thank you so much, Sarah. I really, really appreciate you. We are just so honored to have someone so wonderful as yourself in our clientele. And I'm sure anybody listening has gained some inspiration as well as to what music could mean for them, no matter what their industry is. So thank you so very much.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. I'm a huge fan. This is the best place in Boston. And actually now you're virtual, so you're everywhere.
Yeah. You're everywhere.
That's right. Thank you, Alyssa.
Oh, thanks, Sarah.